Good morning, Mr. Thorn. Coming at you live from YouTube once again. How are we doing this fine morning, my man?
Good. I'm glad to be here again talking some spring football.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of nonsense going on the last couple days, in my opinion. Um, it's kind of headlined by some quarterback movement. It's headlined by, um, you have, it's headlined by the movement of Max Borghi and his retirement. You got, the rosters going up to 94. You got this. You got the UFLPA being a little bit edgy with what they're doing. Like, it just seems like each way you go, there's something going on. And I mean, it's not a bad thing at all. But in my opinion, like, it does get a little bit goofy at times.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is Christmas because I'm a roster guy, so getting every day a new list of guys that are getting signed, whether it's re-signings because XFL guys who were there last year have to re-sign, which is why you're seeing a bunch of guys that you saw last year re-sign for some reason. But then included in this list are new signings, which I'm really excited to talk about. And obviously, a lot of movement with guys getting cut, retiring. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and there's always the retirements. There's always I don't know, a couple things that kind of got me a little bit goofy today was the was the Reed Sinet coming back. I saw on his Instagram that he was doing a lot with like Twitter or with like coaching and whatnot. So I thought it was really awesome to see him coming back. Is there any has there been anyone that you're like jazzed up about that you're like, okay, this is a guy that's kind of like we weren't really sure and then now he's back now?
As far as that, I don't know. I mean, like the ones that I'd assume were back are back. I mean, obviously we'll get into Borgie and that whole situation. The one still keeping an eye on is Kirk Benkirk. Just he hasn't said anything since getting drafted. Last time he came out and said, "I'm not playing in this league," and this time it's radio silence one way or another. So that's really the one that I'm kind of waiting for that to work itself out. But other than that, it'll be surprise retirements going forward. You see a lot of guys like De'Ara King. It's like, okay, we saw that coming from a mile away because of him being a quarterback coach.
Yeah, and
You
that's
know,
something I don't want to say I hurt feelings with because I think it was a little bit I think it was a little edgy to say it, but like people who don't really know like what it takes to be a coach, um, they were kind of just like, yeah, of course he could play it. I'm like, bro, do you not understand how like difficult recruiting is? Um, and it's just been kind of a whirlwind on a lot of that. I'm gonna bring up the rosters. Last week I had John Vogel on. I think we did a really good job of breaking it down. Um, the last thing we went over the initial January 26th. Now we're going to continue treading through it. Depending on what my work schedule is, I think we'll do this once a week. But but with that being said, I gotta do the screen share thing. 1,000 apologies. Sorry, I'm not technologically sound here. So we bring up this first list. Um, is there anyone that like anyone that you're getting jazzed up about right now? Like, is there anything like you're like, oh my god, like anything like that?
yeah. I don't know exactly which list on list, but I have my own that I'll work through.
So
Some will be on.
this is the January 23rd signings list
Yeah, I
that they
didn't
have.
separate it by day.
Oh, okay, yeah,
But I'll talk about mine and then
yeah.
we'll
Oh,
get
let's
back to it.
go for it. Yeah.
So the couple, I have about seven or so names that I'm like really intrigued to see how they fit in. The first one is Darius Hagens, running back for the DC Defenders. He was at Virginia State with Coach Barlow. Had a cup of coffee with the Steelers. Was there pretty much the whole off season. Didn't make the practice squad or anything there. And he's a guy that I'm really intrigued by because not only is he have the connection with the coaching staff, but that backup running back spot behind Abram Smith is like completely wide open. It's like Cameron Harris, who is, a late last season addition. He played well, but Tavius Taylor was an offseason addition out of like Notre Dame College. So very small school guy. I don't see any like clear, incumbent there. So that's one that I'm really excited about. The two receivers that the Roughnecks picked up, Dunbar was early. He might be on that list, but Stephen Dunbar and Kirk Merritt. These guys are like true like perimeter receivers, which I felt like Houston was really lacking. Their top receivers were Isaiah Henney, who's 5'8", and Justin Hall, Henney's 5'7", and Hall is 5'8". And Dunbar is like 6'3", Merritt's over 6 foot. They've got like, actual guys and upgraded the outside receiver positions, and I could see both of them being starting receivers for him this year. Other than that, the Brahmas added some defensive guys that I was really excited about, Savion Patton and bringing back Delonte Scott. They had some pieces on that front seven, but both those guys were like all XFL or one of the better at their position last year. So those two I'm really looking forward to. I think they're lock them in, their starters next year. And then lastly, I got two left actually.
Oh, you're good.
Alex Lindstrom was a center for the Cowboys for like 2 seasons. His brother's on the Falcons is like an all-pro guard, and he's not him, but he's a guy who got a lot of buzz in the draft, so he could be a guy who surprisingly, they got a lot of vets in that center room, but it wouldn't shock me at all if he's the starter week one. And then finally, this one's just more fun than anything, but DeAndre Baker, first-round pick a few years ago, going to DC. Their room's loaded. They have 5 draft picks, which even the Birmingham Stallions, who have draft picks all over the place, only have like 3, I think. So that secondary is absolutely loaded, and that's not even including Dante Anderson, who is all XFL. Michael Joseph, Dwan Neal, like they brought back basically everybody, and then also added a couple first round pick cornerbacks in him and Conley. So those were all the guys that I think like really stood out to me, that are like new additions and not just guys re-signing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I really like the DeAndre Baker thing. Anytime you get that first round pedigree coming in, that always going to get people really jazzed up and whatnot. I just want to go through the comments real quick. Foosball fan asks, who is the Battlehawks running back? Right now, it's going to be Mateo Duran and Kayvon Latest. Latest, I'm pretty high up on. He spends a lot of time in the local area. He went to Missouri State and whatnot. So I think he could be someone really exciting to watch. I'm currently writing an article right now that I'll put out, but I'm going through some of the guys that I think would be good fits. One guy who's kind of a stretch here that I was doing the connections and everything like that. It was a gentleman named Chardarius Townsend who went to what's it called, Texas Tech. He's kind of a running back tweener, and with Townsend, because he's running back, he also has that connection to Art Valero, who was there in 2021. So it might happen, it might not. But also, I was looking at AJ Richardson as well, another guy who's kind of a tweener, running back and receiver type guy. He was their third down back for Michigan last year. So I found that to be kind of a neat little thing that maybe he could fill in. Jeremy Cox, if you're looking at a true running back, is another guy. Is another guy that I was pretty high up on as well. I know we talked about him last week, Thorn, or a couple weeks ago, but about how he was someone that kind of had one shot, popped, and then hasn't really been heard of since. And he's a guy who's actually played in NFL games before. So, I mean, we talk about it all the time. We talk about it in nauseum. We talk about it in a sense of like, for lack of a better term, like, oh, when you condense the teams, everyone's gonna get better. But in reality, it is unfortunate because we do have so many people that are, kind of SOL, and it's not the most fun environment to be in. But in reality, like that's what's happening right now, and I mean, there's really nothing we can do about it. So, I mean, that's how I feel about it. I might be a little bit, crass on the matter and whatnot, but I do feel like I have a pretty, decent understanding as far as with the running backs and everything like that. So, I don't know. I like this one as well. I'm trying to hit it. There we go. Reed Sinet will be good with the Roughnecks. I mean, I don't think it's an outlandish take. I think he was better than Jack Cohn last year. Um, and that was my personal opinion. I thought he was a little bit better than Jack Cohn last year, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'd agree. To me, especially getting Kirk Merritt, who has been with Sinnott back in when they were both on Miami. It wouldn't shock me at all if Sinnott's starter there. I mean, I think it's him and Garantano for the starting job. I mean, we'll see. Who knows? We've seen crazier things than Nolan Henderson, coming out of nowhere and starting. But
Yeah, I mean
um,
they signed Kenji Bahar to get rid of Kenji Bahar. Like everyone was all jazzed up about Henderson and Bahar, and I was like, bro, this is like the same version of him, low key. Like there wasn't much difference.
yeah, I mean, like I'm a
More athletic,
Bahar.
I think. Like I think Henderson's more athletic, personally.
You're probably right. Bahar was not that
Yeah.
dynamic as a playmaker, but and I'm a Bahar defender. Like I really like I think it's just because he's from my area that I was
Yeah.
very excited when
Yeah,
he
he
did
went the he
well.
went he
But
went the he went the moment and whatnot.
yeah, he's from Baltimore, so
Yeah.
I was rooting for him, but it was clear by the end of that season that like the coaching staff did not trust him. They were putting in like Montel Cozart instead of him. Like
Yeah. I mean
at that point, it's over.
the guys I talked to on that team, um, they were pretty adamant about like how everything was kind of going, and it was a big confidence thing, in my opinion. Um, yeah, I mean I don't know, that's the reality of the situation. Unfortunately, there's like there's only 8 quarterback spots, and all these coaches are kind of going to be edgy, and they're going to keep cycling them through. So
Yeah. I want to go back real quick on the Battlehawks running back situation
yeah, go for it.
because I do have a few names I want to throw out there. First off, for on the side of Borghi, I mean, this is like we don't talk about it as much, but this is also a benefit of these spring football leagues. Is like Max Borghi was this, NFL, journeyman in like the one season he was in the NFL. He was on like two or three teams. Was clearly not making it. Was able to play a full season as a starter. Played well and didn't get an NFL opportunity and said, okay, that's it. And, it gave him a soft landing spot where he had a year where he could keep doing what he wanted to do and then move on. And I think that's just as valuable in a league like this than, your Alex Magoo who plays unbelievably, goes to the NFL. This is also providing an opportunity to guys to, get one more shot at it, and then if it doesn't happen, they retire. And it's not unusual. You saw Jordan Ellis last year. He was the leading rusher of the USFL, hang it up in the offseason. So that's not crazy. As for the Battlehawks running back room, I think there's three guys I'm looking at. The least interesting one is Brian Hill, who was their running back last year, who has been a free agent since like August. So maybe he's done, but
Yeah,
it
I mean he's got the world at his feet. He's got the option to come back, and I mean no one called it. No one called. So I think Brian's kind of good, man. Like
okay.
yeah, yeah. I mean that's what I've asked some people on the team like through official and unofficial channels, and no one's really. They've all kind of been like, we'll see.
I mean, I think by the end of the season, they really didn't trust him because of the fumble issues. Just visually speaking, I don't have any sources. I'm just a guy who talks on the internet. But the other two guys, I looked through. Shout out Greg Parks from UFL board. He does all the like practice squad futures deals work, so it was very easy for me to just look through and see which guys didn't get futures deals. And the two names that really stuck out to me as intriguing guys for St. Louis is Anthony McFarland, running back from Maryland. He was a
Yeah,
fourth round pick a few years ago for the Steelers. Never really figured it out at the NFL level. And a similar player in Demetric Felton, who was he's more of you talked about that kind of tweener where in the NFL we're doing the like the lighter running back, the kind of your um, Devon A. Chans of the world have kind of taken over. Felton's very similar to that as like a poor man's version of that, and to be, he never really worked out as like that kind of like, oh, sometimes he's a running back, sometimes he's a receiver thing in the NFL after a couple years. So, he's a guy I think would be a very interesting prospect to see as NFL and now UFL offenses shift with the times.
do you think there is a as these leagues go on, maybe a like a self reflection period as a lot of these players, the sexiness kind of wears off to the point where they're just like, I would rather just use this 4 year degree than keep chasing this dragon that doesn't like that I can't monetize, that I'm putting my body through so much BS. Like, is that something you feel that like Max Borghi might be like streamlining a little bit, like kind of like how Chris Borland was the guy that had retirements and whatnot come up a little bit earlier because of his head injuries. Because that's kind of the vibe I'm getting right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. Is he decided, okay, I make a similar amount of money where I don't get my head beaten for, whatever, 100 carries a year. Um, the um, I don't think this is like an aberration. I think this is gonna keep happening, especially as guys get to like year 4, year 5, in spring football. Like there's going to be a point where guys are going to start hanging it up. And I think the average age of retirement is going to be a lot younger than it is in the NFL. Like we think of like guys getting over the hill. And it's like, okay, they're past 30 or whatever, a little bit younger if you're a running back. But, in this league, it might be 27, it might be 26 where guys are getting to that point where they're like, okay, well, this should be my prime and I'm not getting NFL opportunities. So, I'm glad I was able to play a few extra years of football, but, it's not worth it for me anymore. But I also think on the flip side, there's going to be guys who are just, in it for the love of the game, who are just going to keep going until the wheels fall off or someone tells them they can't play anymore. I mean, look at Will Hill. I mean, he's obviously not in the UFL, but that guy was, years out of the NFL when he went to the AAF, and then after the AAF, he went straight to the XFL, and then straight from the XFL, he went straight to the XFL. Last year, he was like, okay, every opportunity I can get, I'm gonna keep playing, and he was like 33. So I think there's gonna be some guys who are gonna stick around forever, and other guys are gonna get their good year in and say, okay, if this was my best and it's not good enough, so I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, with this, and we'll go into like the UFLPA a little bit with this. I want to talk about that, but like with the like, I don't really want to say was it a reduction in pay or is it a more of a like lack of opportunity in pay? Like is that the best way to describe it? I don't know. With all the drama, there's a union, it's this, it's that. Like, I just feel like there's so much nonsense to so many people that they're just kind of like, they're just, how worth it is it to them right now? You know what I mean? And I might be off base by that, but that's kind of reality I feel like a little bit. Like, you know, how do
Yeah,
you feel about that?
I mean, like. first off, I'm not. This is getting further out of my expertise,
Yeah,
so
this is not
it is
legal
what it is.
advice.
But for me, the thing I've always seen is like people talk about the pay and like they always compare it to the NFL. But to me, like they are getting paid for like 4 months of work, and
Yeah,
like
so
these guys can go in their off season and work a second job if they have to, and it's not terrible pay for that. It's not exactly gonna make guys want to stick around forever, but it's not awful, and in that um, time window. So we'll see. Obviously, you'd hope that with one league, they'd have a little bit more leverage with like, hey, you're cutting half the jobs, so you need to pay everyone a little bit more. But beyond that, like I'm not in on those conversations and those negotiations, so I don't know what how those really went. You just kind of see the end result, and clearly some people are fine with it. Others are irate. We remember I saw when they first like announced all that stuff. Jamar Smith, the quarterback for the Stallions, got really mad on Twitter about it all. But either way, like it's um, to me, like it's not off. It's not so horrendous, the pay, but obviously, you hope as this league grows that also grows.
I like what Foosball fan writes here. He goes, 2023 flashy vet signings were the marketing budget. I mean, I don't know how true that is, but I don't think that's the biggest lie. I mean, you had AJ Martavis, Josh Gordon, I mean, Brett Hundley ish, Philip Lindsay. I mean, really can't. I mean, that's still a decent amount of guys there. It is what it is. I don't know, man. It's so there's so much nonsense going on to me that like I'm really just trying to focus on the football. And that's like the best thing I can do. I'm starting to get a little jaded with a little bit of it, but I mean, like, that's you can't really get too jaded about a lot of it. Um, I mean, really, that's pretty much all I really want to talk about today. I really want to stay on the comms for forever. Talk about this quarter. We can go over these quarterbacks real quick, and
You could also talk about the trade, the first ever UFL
yeah,
trade.
which I get like Zach Potter is like the wonder kid and whatnot, and but I feel like there wasn't a trade in the '09 to 12 version. I feel like there had to have been, or do we
That
not?
that
Or do we not
that
count
predates
that?
me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there had to have been.
I have
Do
no
we
idea.
do? Yeah, are we just doing revisionist history here? Like the first. I mean, it's the first trade of the season, but like the XFL did trades, the USFL did trades, the UFL did trades. So
Just put in parentheses 2024 version
yeah.
after
We're
first
go.
in UFL history.
Yeah, I forgot. We're going back to the modern era.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
I
modern
just don't
record.
think they're just gonna pretend the old UFL just doesn't exist. And honestly, that's probably a good move.
Oh man, with these jerseys and everything like
Ugh,
that, like I don't know, dude.
brutal.
Yeah, it is what it is, man. But yeah, you want to talk about that trade that came up
Yeah,
on
sure.
Monday or last Monday rather?
I think a lot of people were confused about it because of like the fact that it was a DB for a DB. Um, my thing is I don't think like I tried to look at like what their snap splits were to see if like maybe they played different positions, and I would say like Elijah Holder for Seattle last year was moved around a lot, which might be something that San Antonio might like, the fact that he can play a little slot, a little strong safety, a little free, more um, than Bubba Bolden can. He's more of like a true free safety, although he will play in the box every now and then. But for me, this is the reason why this was happened was the fact that San Antonio switched coaching staffs and Bubba Bolden was a holdover from the previous staff. So clearly they didn't view him very highly. And they were like, okay, well, we feel like Holder's going to be a little bit better in camp for us. We think he fits our defense a little bit better for whatever reason. So that's kind of the big takeaway was that I kind of did look into this a little bit, and I think That's probably the most clear reason. And as for why Birmingham would do this, I do think like Bubba is an interesting prospect. He's one of those guys who got drafted last year for the XFL and then didn't play because he got a futures deal. I think with Cleveland, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it
Um,
was either Cleveland or Tennessee.
yeah, I think it was Cleveland. So this is a guy who they love getting all those guys who just fell out of the NFL, like getting those guys like fresh. They really want to, get their break their own record of 15 NFL signings in an off season. So they're getting a
Which,
lot of guys like that
well, no, I
preparing.
mean St. Louis broke that record. Technically, St. Louis had 16, and I think the San Antonio Commanders had like 17 or something like that.
They had 15 because I
Oh, okay.
remember making a tweet about how the Birmingham had the most, and maybe the St. Louis caught up because they had a lot of late signings with like
Yeah, you had
McCarron and Alex.
McCarron. Yeah, it was McCarron, Matheson, and then like it was like I don't know. I mean, it's all just seeing who gets to the front of the short bus to an extent, right? Like it's all a lot of ego driven stuff, but it makes for good like Twitter tweets, unfortunately, which that's kind of what a lot of people care about more than anything else.
Yeah,
More, but yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at your AAF roster, and it's a lot of retreads, man, a lot of retreads. But
oh, the like AAF to NFL guys.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
a lot of those guys are still kicking around.
yeah,
Or like at least were in the XFL in 2020. But a few of these names: TJ Barnes, shout out
yeah. I mean,
TJ,
yeah,
good guy. But
Greg Ward, who became relevant in like 2020 because everyone got
yeah,
hurt.
yeah,
I mean, Cole Mauza was a guy who was around for a little bit longer. Casey Sales winning awards in Canada right now. I mean, Cody Brown's still around. I think Orion Stewart played in the USFL for some reason. I don't know. There was a lot of those guys.
yeah,
Wolford, Demarcus Gates, kind of an NFL veteran. I mean, Chris Odom, kind of an NFL veteran. You know,
yeah.
most successful class of quarterbacks. They had 7 guys get signed, and I think like 5 of them stayed on the roster for like a decent amount of season. Granted, Josh Fordrum and Matt Sims getting hurt and then going on IR, but still counts, right? Still counts.
Yeah, I think it's the same for Woodrum too, where he never
Yeah,
really got any opportunity because he got hurt right away. But
yeah, but hey,
we're
man,
getting way off topic now.
oh, dude, yeah, we got to wrap it up. We're being
Yeah.
too edgy right now. I do want to, ask, just bring this up. Any news on the schedule is today? I mean, you know what I mean? It's the schedule will come out when the schedule will come out at this point, right? I mean, it does suck because people try to plan out a month in advance and whatnot, but yeah, no, it's definitely like I think people had the schedule like 30 days out before last year, 30 or 40, and I think we're in like 60 days or something like that. So I mean, I totally sympathize with people on that. It gives me, especially now that we know the teams, we can, people can be a little bit more like in depth with their analysis and whatnot, and can have actual conversation and everything like that about like the schedule. So I definitely rock with like people's frustrations with the schedule and everything like that. So yeah, but yeah, and it's funny, foosball fan, talking about it, like kicking it, tickets on sale and whatnot. So I mean, Thorne, not much to talk about. Just wanted to talk a little bit football today. Didn't want to be on here for 3 hours like we usually are, but any final thoughts?
No, I'm just excited. I mean, I'm sure we're gonna get as signings today at the end of the day, and I'll keep updating my stuff with that.
Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, like I'm also certain that schedule is gonna come out sooner rather than later. At this point, I think it'll be probably this week or next week.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean,
that's just a hunch.
yeah, I mean, I'm very like go with the flow on this stuff at this point, man. Like,
Yeah,
there's really no like, there's no rush for me at this point. So, I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe we'll see Chad Ochocinco get drafted. So or
man,
signed,
we
whatever.
were so close to not mentioning that this whole stream.
Yeah, no, you had to hit it for the algorithm. So it'll pick up, make this thing go viral. So,
Yeah, of course.
but hi everyone, appreciate y'all checking in. You know, kind of a shorter, just kind of checking in, State of the Union type stuff. But if you're new here, obviously drop a like, subscribe, helps us out. I will be doing some interviews with some players coming up. You know, one NFL guy, and then one draft prospect, and then maybe an XFL guy next week. So appreciate you guys. Thank you. You know, everyone take it easy. You know, all that good stuff.